Think we're live. Hello, Self-Care Sunday family. Oh, man. It's going to be a special stream today. Let me just make sure it's focus. See. Great. You guys let me know in the chat, as always, if there's anything wrong with the technical stuff. I will be watching, but welcome. So freaking exciting to have you all here. No sound. Oh, bummer. I can hear you, but you're a little tinny. So there is sound. I'm confused. It looks like there's sound to me looking at the monitor. So yeah, I apologize if it sounds tinny. Sound is weird, or is it my headphones? Never mind. I don't know. We can hear you. It's okay. Hooray. This is definitely a new setup, and God bless my incredible guest, one of my best friends from college, and just a wonderful human being who actually I think, firmly attribute as the person who got me interested in mental health and mental illness before it was something that was on my radar. To give you some context, let me just switch this over. I'm using my laptop in the living room to control a computer in there. It's like a whole thing. I'll do like an Instagram about it later, just because it's a lot of fun. But first, I just wanted to show you guys. Boop, 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 boop. Sorry. 1 second. Wait, is that working? Oh, I think I know what happened. Okay, that's obnoxious. I can't do anything about it. I can't show a picture of the website and talk over it for how I have this set up. And that's dumb, and that's on me, and I don't really know how to fix that other than try again. Oh, what if I do this? That's crafty. So now, patient with me. So now I believe I have it set up so that you can see the page and hear me. Wow. So you just missed that whole gush. I was just talking extensively about how incredible my time in India in 2012 with Raghu and his startup nonprofit social impact venture called the Minds Foundation, which is about raising awareness about mental health and mental illness and stigma and these things in rural developing areas of the world, starting with rural India. This was back in 2012. I was the filmmaker, and meeting a 22-year-old with schizophrenia when I was 21 and hearing the miracle that Western medicine was for him and the life that it gave back was just extraordinary for me at the time. And I had been very cynical about my own experience in the Western medical system with ADD and attention deficit disorder and the side effects that come with those drugs and the sort of lack of driving support for finding like supplemental alternative or at least, just holistic strategies for living with a neuroatypicality, if that's a phrase. Anywho, I really credit Raghu and his work for being the start of Project Uplift. In fact, it was I remember a night in India back in 2012 when I was like, Raghu, I have this idea where we could like go back to the States and like bring contemplative practices and like mindfulness back to like raise awareness about the issue. And then like people who hang out at our hangouts will like want to be a part of the nonprofit. So they'll help out. And it was like, that's great, Zach. And like, I have a board on my nonprofit and like, that sounds like a different nonprofit. Maybe you should go start that. And that's sort of how Project Uplift got started. Although it wasn't to be fulfilled until many years. Without further ado, let me bring my friend Raghu in and bring myself back. So I do that, and then wahoo! Hey Raghu!
Hey.
So great to have you with us. You're live.
Okay.
You're live, baby.
Awesome. I'm pretty pumped to be here. I know Zach and I have been trying to coordinate for a while, and schedules get pretty crazy. So really excited to be on and talk to you guys and interact with this tremendous community that he's built over all of this.
Let's be real. It's all Tiffany. My cat. But I really appreciate that. It's just so great to have you with us. I feel like this is very much the natural extension of my work with Project Uplift, and as that has morphed and changed over the years, I think that this is definitely the most recent incarnation of that desire to bring the conversation that I think you started in my life around recontextualizing mental health and mental illness and all of that. Let me just take a sec. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and anything that you think people should know about you, anything that I got right or wrong or anything like that.
Perfect. Yeah. So thanks, Zach. Zach mentioned I started the Minds Foundation. The basic mission is to try to create a world in which people can ask for help and have access to resources for their mental health and well-being. It stemmed from my own experience volunteering in India with another group, as well as sort of witnessing the stigma within my own family, having my cousin go through the mental health care system in India. And I really wanted to do something that was very community-based. And for me, mental health can really only be achieved if people are aware of what it is and they are educated about what it is. And a lot of it comes around the language and the terminology we use about mental health, mental illness, a newer term, mental injury. So that's kind of where I come from. And then on the other side of it, I'm wrapping up medical school and actually applying into psychiatry with trying to focus more on sort of the child adolescent population. And my dream is really to provide people with the tools to help them discover their passions and their goals at an early age and achieve that in their lifetime. So a newer topic that I will talk about in a little bit is sort of my approach to mental health, which is integrative psychiatry. So it's using Western philosophies as well as a lot of the Eastern philosophies of approaching well-being.
I'm obsessed. That's super cool. Do you remember how we met at college?
Oh, man. I feel like I might have came to Wesco to your dorm for a party.
That's right. Oh man.
And
Yeah,
you
what
had
I
crazy,
think may
like,
not
multi-monitor display setup going on.
some things never change.
But
That's
yeah,
really
we've known
funny.
each other since like 2008, pretty much. And yeah, that
That's awesome.
experience in India, that's when a lot of stuff came together, just the group we had and walking around in the middle of the night in rural India, coming up with some crazy ideas. But that's how stuff happens, guys. So if you're passionate about something, you got to keep going with it and find the people and surround yourself with people that will help you.
Mm. And I know a lot of folks, it looked like somebody is having their first day at university. Uh, uh, I think the chat moved so fast I missed it, but that's pretty cool. And I think there's a lot to learn from how Raghu built minds one conversation at a time at college. And yeah, and just sort of use the laboratory of Wesleyan University to and like the resources that are available there to be a springboard to make a difference in the world. I
Yeah.
remember we had an evening where you came by my dorm room in junior year, the year before we went to India. And do you want to tell that story?
Yeah. So I I had to figure out sort of like how to pitch and tell people about what Minds was. So Zach, with his crazy tech setups, actually put a chair on his mattress, and we somehow got some like pitch video going on. But I have to really thank him because I wasn't the most comfortable public speaker when I was starting all of this. Most of the time I was like doing research in laboratories and stuff like that. So he really worked with me and was very patient to help me articulate what our message was, like really come up with what is like the essence of Minds, what is the vision, the mission, and work through a lot of that. So I think for that person starting university and for everyone else in the chat that's been through college, like it's not an easy time. There's a lot of ups and downs. There's a lot of roller coasters. You meet some people that you think are your friends. They might not be. And then you end up kind of building your own core and you end up meeting people like Zach and connecting with them. So I think that having the resilience to get through all those obstacles is really key. And that's something I faced as well going through college and going to a new place, a new environment.
Mm. And what do you remember from that evening that you've taken with you in regards to communicating the things that matter to you?
Yeah, so honestly, I think the best message I got out of that whole experience was you can't overthink what you're trying to say, because if you're passionate about it, it's going to come out the right way and people would definitely understand and recognize that in what you're saying. So, you know, the truth comes out and your passion will really show. And that's something I see now in a lot of the kids that I work with and patients is you can see them despite their mental health issues, like what they're actually passionate about. It really comes through. So I would say like, don't overthink things and don't try to compare yourself to other people. Just kind of focus on what you're doing, focus on what you want to achieve.
Right. I love that. It's like getting it right will get you trapped in trying to sound good. And I think people are forgiving. People respond to that passion. So one of the things that, so before the chat, I think more than any other Self-Care Sunday guest, Raghu was very patient with me while I tried this new setup. And the context is like, I was like trying to make the show into something that was like about growing the show, as opposed, like, it basically, I took Self-Care Sunday and I made it this like wad of stress as opposed to me actually just being with you guys as part of my self-care on Sunday. And yeah, it felt really inauthentic. And so I had this opportunity to have one of my best friends on, and we haven't been in touch for a while. So like, I think there's something that we started to talk about right before the thing, that before we went live, and before I took like an hour to like tinker around with all my gadgets and stuff to get this working, that I'd love to continue having live. And part of the theme is my self-care today was to put work on pause, do my laundry, which I'm going to fold right now, and be mindful while we have a conversation. And like, I find it to be really therapeutic to just like fold my own laundry instead of getting it dropped off, which I used to do. And I installed this exercise thing in my ceiling, which was a lot of fun. I love working with power tools, and I don't make time during the week so much anymore to do it. And now that Project Uplift has been built, and so I have a way to exercise right when I get to bed. So anyway, I think the theme that has come to mind while I was like trying to put a label on what we were talking about, Raghu, it was like designing your life. Because I think I get caught in this, like, I'm behind where other people are, like this guy's winning and I'm like trying to catch up. And like, meanwhile, like my self-care is falling out, and like I get stuck in the rat race, which I feel like the trap of that is, even if you win, you're still a rat. And like, we actually can decide what success means and not be in a race with other people other than a race with ourselves. And it can be a race that is like a three-legged race, like potato sack race. It's like a game that we made up that's fun, not like a life or death struggle. And so, yeah, I guess like to kick it off, like, it sounds like you have been thinking along similar lines as I have about like, what am I doing? Like, I got a lot of interests and like only so much time. And I guess, can you like give me a picture about like where your head's been recently, dude?
Yeah. So I think it's challenging, right? Because like, I am one of those people, and I know Zach is too, where we just love to meet people and we get really excited about what they're doing and think about like, all right, how can I help you like achieve your goal? And that like ends up kind of stretching us a little bit thin. And at the end of the day, I think, so for me, this happened kind of throughout medical school, but I actually took a month off this year in February to like really like sit back and focus on my own like mental health well-being. Started doing yoga again regularly, started doing things with intention more regularly. And that was huge, right? So that helped me figure out like, what is it that I want to do? Like, what is it that I, as a person, can contribute, and how do I, for lack of a better word, like market myself in the world? Like, how do people see me, right? So how, like, if they hear my name, what is that associated with? Now, you can't think too hard about it, but for me, it came down to, okay, like, I'm passionate about mental health. Like, despite this being a nonprofit, despite all of the obstacles, like I really enjoy working on it. I really enjoy working with my team. There's like such a passionate group of people who work on this mission with me. So that was the thing that I came to is like, okay, like mental health is my thing, but what have I learned over the years, right? And so like working in India, this biggest thing I learned was like the strength of community and the strength of a lot of the Eastern philosophies of mindfulness and yoga and how you can alleviate a lot of anxiety, mental anxiety using those techniques sort of in parallel with like the Western medicine that I've learned in medical school. And going through medical school, I saw a lot of people in training dealing with burnout, dealing with depression, anxiety. There's been an increase in suicide amongst doctors and health professionals. And so for me, my thing was like, as a future psychiatrist now, I can work on not only treating my patients, but trying to change the status quo within the healthcare industry and the way that people kind of go through training by integrating a lot of those principles I learned in India, like building community strength through community and support. So I think the big...
Can we unpack? Yeah,
Sorry?
yeah. I don't want to interrupt. I don't want to interrupt, and I'd love to go zooming in on community for a moment because that's huge and so, like, yeah, like so fucking awesome that that's what you're thinking about because that's exactly where my head's been at.
Yeah, and I think community is a big, broad word. And for me, Wesleyan was like the perfect community when it came down to it. I found the people that I'm like friends with for the rest of my life closer than I am with some of, with my siblings. And so it has that impact on you. Then I got to medical school. I wasn't able to find that same sort of community vibe as much. So I think as you go through life, there's a lot of various challenges and different situations and people, but things come together. And I think for me, it's really like quality over quantity, right? Like there's certain people that have that like FOMO fear and they spread themselves too thin. But at the end of the day, that leaves you sort of alone versus just really connecting with people and getting into those deep conversations. And I think the key is to make yourself vulnerable and open up, right?
How the hell do you do that?
Yeah, and it's scary. And I'm bad with it when it comes to like dating, let's say, right? It's very hard.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to like open up and let yourself loose, and you don't want to let someone into your mind and into your body like that. But I think...
So do you mean like saying stuff like, Raghu, I don't know if you could tell, but I felt really guilty while I was setting up this setup and like you were just waiting and like everybody was ready except for me, and like I could have been ready earlier if I didn't start this like home project of installing the thing in my ceiling, which was like maybe the wrong thing to do, but like I guess I asked if you were like had a hard stop, but like I didn't just say like, hey, are you cool if I just take an indefinite amount of time to do something I'm not sure will work, rather than just like I felt guilty for not being like clear with you that I actually was trying something that might take 20, 30 minutes or like however much time it ended up taking. And yeah, I could have just communicated that. I don't know why I didn't.
Yeah, but it's fine, right? Like, I think that, we set this up. I've been excited to do this for a while. Like, we tried a couple of times before and like it didn't work out. So I was pumped to do it, and I was pumped to like meet the community that, has formed around this whole show. So, and I've known Zach for so long, right? So like, I don't really care waiting a little bit longer and helping him out, like trying something new. Because I think like I want him to feel comfortable knowing that like you could try these things and like we can experiment a little bit because I've known him for so long, right? So I think getting to that point with someone is like the key, and like it's really just my intention of going in now is I just like try to trust people and have good intentions, and sometimes that bites you in the foot, but
just get comfortable getting uncomfortable in foot biting.
Yeah, but the majority of people are good and well-intentioned. So I think you got to have that faith in humanity as you go forward, and you learn a lot by doing that. I've had a crazy couple of years.
Yeah. And do you want to like, I guess, is there, because I guess for me, I've recently been feeling like, and I have the luxury of a craft that I can do for a living, that since I was laid off and transitioned to freelance and have been looking at like sort of what my next chapter is as Wolf 359 winds down. I was laughing when you mentioned Wesleyan, by the way, because everybody here gets told all the time about Wolf, which is what brought in a lot of people. Wolf 359, the sci-fi audio drama that I do, which is almost all Wesleyan people. So it's like, what is this Wesleyan plays and why is it so magic? That's another stream that might be too long for that. But anyway, joking aside, it's so funny. So it's funny you say community, because I was in a course last year that had me all focused on, like, it was about play and ease. Like that was the advertising that I was like, I want this. And then when I got there, it was like all about community, which I was like really impatient with when I first heard it. I was like, oh, these people, I just want to be playful. Like, just like, where's that? And I discovered it's like, I don't get to be anybody really. Like if like it was that zombie apocalypse movie with Will Smith where there's nothing around and it's just me in a vacuum, like then do it like, it's like sort of that Zen Cohen-y, like trolley question of like, do you really exist if you have nobody to be anybody for? And I'm like, I don't care about the really far out existential quantum physics question of that, but like the more down to earth grounded, like, can I be playful if there's no one to be playful with? Like, can I be playful in a vacuum? And I don't know if I don't know the answer. I don't know if there's an answer. I find asking the question to be valuable. And it's had me discover the juice of picking up the phone and calling a friend every day. I don't go a day without having a phone call with somebody that I think is smarter than me, funnier than me, more loving or compassionate than I am, or just somebody in my life, whether it's a family member or a friend. And I get to be more of who I want to be. Like, I'm less likely to be like glued to Netflix, which I've slowly been unhinging myself from. And picking up the phone makes a big difference. And now I'm looking at doing meetups and like having, like, I've done some potlucks, but they've been a little haphazard and I've been kind of messy at inviting people early. Anyway, so that's where my head's at. How about you? Like, what does community mean to you and how has that been playing out for you?
No, it's definitely, I second what you're saying. It's definitely tough. For me, it's like, I just like to have new experiences with other people. And that's really how my mind stretches and forms new dimensions. So kind of going back for me, it was, I'm pretty social, I feel like, and I've gotten more comfortable sort of even spending time by myself and having that sort of intention and mindfulness building exercises that I started doing on my own. And I'll give a couple of examples of that in a minute. But for me, is like, I got to medical school and it was like totally different, like a bunch of like type A people for the majority. And it was hard for me to like connect and find folks that to like discover their passions, right? Like they were doing this, they were always academically good, and they sort of went through this cycle. And then I was sort of disillusioned by like my experiences in the hospital. It wasn't really what I expected, sort of the empathy, the compassion that I expected a lot of physicians to have. It was much more of like a paperwork administrative burnout situation. And I think I got to this point where I like almost wanted to like quit. And
I remember we briefly spoke around that time.
Yeah, and I think when I was thinking that, that's when I reached out to my community, right? So that was like Zach, that was like some of my other friends from Wesleyan, a few from medical school, my family, stuff like that. So I think you have to have that base and that foundation that you can go to, and that support structure, where people kind of understand where you're coming from. At the same time, you have to be comfortable opening up to them and trusting in them that they're going to like accept you for that. Right. And that's hard to find. It's really tough to find. And I think having those conversations allowed me to figure out, okay, like, yeah, maybe this system is not what you expected. It might not be the best, but that's your goal then. That's like what you can contribute, is changing it and morphing it to what you think can be better. So that's what the community really does for me, is it allows me to dare, right? It allows me to dare to take the challenge and the risk of making mistakes and of trying to make an impact that is not like normal or status quo or like in line with like the traditional paths. So I think that's like the biggest thing for me, is like I love experiencing new things with people, and the way that my community allows me to experiment, I want to like allow people who I meet to experiment and support them. And if you go in with that intention into any sort of like new relationship, I think the person will give that right back to you, right? And that's sort of how you build your own community.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the chat and seeing people's reactions. It's really cool to see this community and the things that you guys share about, and just like how vulnerable y'all are willing to be makes me feel more comfortable to be more vulnerable. And from that, like, I guess like for like, I find myself in like being in community, being in relation to others reminds me who I am and gives me room to stretch into and step up and discover leadership in these things. Raghu, I'm curious. You mentioned it's hard to find that. And I think with that, you were referring to people that it's safe to be vulnerable around and to open up to.
Yeah.
Do you think it's a matter of the right people, or is it a like choice that you make within yourself, right? Like, is it a finding the right person situation, or is it bringing a mindset to come from inside yourself and cultivating that? Or a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Like, I'm really curious how you look at this.
Yeah, so I used to think it was sort of like finding the right people initially. But then you realize it's actually more of taking the mindset, right? Because I think everyone's looking for the same thing, and they're looking for that acceptance and allowance to be vulnerable. So I feel like if you take the mindset to it, the other person will start reciprocating it, because they sort of witness you opening up and taking that risk, which allows them to do it. So that's what's tough, right?
And they may not in the first conversation, right?
Because otherwise, most people like go around being very protective of themselves, and like that's a little bit understandable, right? In this day and age where everything's sort of like public, and we have like social media and all of this, and everything's like out there.
As we're live streaming, I'm like, oh, the social media.
As we live stream this whole thing.
Yeah.
So I think that, yeah, it's more so the mindset that you have to take into it. And that's a little bit scary the first time or the 100th time you do it. But
yeah, I don't think it gets right.
Right. But like, it doesn't, I don't know. I try to think positive, stay positive. And there's definitely like, it doesn't work for every sort of person you meet doing that. But, you know, that mindset makes you, in essence, have a more positive psychology approach to yourself. And if it's not going to work out with that person, then they just might not be ready to get to that level of building that relationship.
Right.
And then it's
like, I wouldn't want to, sorry?
And then it's kind of up to you if you want to like work with them and help them develop, or they just aren't ready.
Right. I would say I wouldn't want to set people up with like a false expectation that every single human being you're vulnerable with will reciprocate and at the level at which you brought it. I would consider that people have been vulnerable with you. Like I've recently had an experience where somebody felt like they couldn't get through to me, like a really close friend. It was really upsetting for me to find out, but it was also really great to get the, theoretically bad news that I don't listen or I wasn't listening or I couldn't hear what they were trying to say because holy God, like I just want to hear that, you know what I mean? Like I can see why there were crossed wires. And I think life is complicated with many, many, many perspectives all in the same room at the same time between people. And it's really simple in the like, keep coming back, like those like punching bags that like were like inflated dinosaurs or clowns or whatever that like come back up. And it's just like, if you're willing to just come back up with like an open arms, open heart, and like put in the work, it seems like it works out in the end. And I think people will more often than not reciprocate vulnerability with vulnerability and compassion with compassion and empathy with empathy, even if it takes some time, because objects in motion tend to stay in the same direction and velocity unless acted upon by an outside force. And you get to be that outside force. So I guess what's come from those conversations in sort of, because I know for me, the conversations have looked a lot like, man, I feel like I'm all over the place. Like I've been doing this thing that's ending, that's working. And like, there's a lot of opportunity, but like also a lot in the way. And like, I can't count on that for a living. And, in the sense that like, I'm at the beginning of that marathon and it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so like, what do I want to do for keeping the lights on, so on and so forth. And like, but I also want to make a difference and I'm also really creative and I like have all these like desires to create in different mediums and everything takes time. And like, I have people in my life I want to get to know better and like that, that precludes other people that I would get to see. So it comes down to, I think there's more in life that we say no to than yes to. And I'm definitely coming up against, I don't like that because I want to say yes to everything. But more than doing everything I want to, like really make this one count, not by some out there standard, but like what, feeds me. And this is a huge part of like getting to do this every week is like, has been one of the anchors for me as I look at what's next in a bigger way. So we're like, what's your version of that look like, Raghu?
Okay, that's tough. So I think like I want to go back to a little bit is like the listening, right? It's like,
please, yeah.
People can tell if you're like listening or if you're like listening with intent and desire to listen. So one of the exercises that I did that I started implementing in sort of my daily routine in conversation is it was developed by this psychologist called Carl Rogers. You guys should totally check him out. He does active listening. And it's basically intentionally you can't do anything except nonverbal cues as the other person is talking to you, right? So what that allows me to do is like, okay, like I'm allowing someone to speak and to open up. And in this day and age where we cut everyone off within like 10 seconds, 30 seconds maybe, I believe the average doctor does it in 16 seconds in the most recent study, which is terrible. So,
oh my
God. So basically what I'm saying is if you allow someone to speak, it actually allows them to process and go into a deeper cognitive state where they're able to almost like answer their own questions and their own and get to their own discoveries, right? And so I sort of challenge all of you to try that out in your next interaction with someone is just like ask them a very broad question like, oh, like how's your week? Like what have you been up to this week? Or tell me something exciting that you did this summer. And just like allow them the freedom to speak for like 2 to 3 minutes. And all you can do is nonverbal cues. And then challenge yourself to sort of discover how you felt doing that, where you had to just listen and what your reactions were. Like what times did you want to like say something or agree or disagree, right? And that's sort of like a very tiny mindfulness exercise that has helped me a lot. And the reaction I get from people is very surprising because they're like, whoa, like you just allowed me to speak for that. Like that was crazy. I haven't done that in years. And I think that's the best way to do it, right? Like that's how you get people to be vulnerable and comfortable with you. And then they reciprocate the same towards you. Self-discovery is tough, but that exercise has really helped me a lot because people have started reciprocating the same to me. So it allows me to talk and figure out things and like develop what am I really like? What the hell am I actually trying to say? So that helps a lot.
I love that so much. And it's like, as somebody who has a lot of Skype calls, a lot harder to do on slightly laggy internet conversations than it is in real life. And I just wanted to say, if anybody here takes that exercise on and tries it and wants to share about it next weekend, let me know on Twitter. Let me know in the comments here, and we'll make it happen. I don't think we're going to do a call in today for technical reasons. And maybe that's not true. I think there's a way we could do it that won't break everything. I take that back. Anyway, we won't do a call in this week, but I would like to do them again next week. But I do have a question in the chat, and if anybody else has questions, please let me know. It was a question about stress eating from Rosie N. How do you control it? Because right now I have a crazy stressful week, and yesterday I won 2 cakes from my church cakewalk. Oh my God. Well, one, congratulations on winning those cakes. Also, my mailing address is 620 Wilson Avenue, PMB 244, Brooklyn, New York, 11207. I accept all forms of, no, I actually don't send food, but I do. That is like the Wolf 359/Zach mailbox. But anyway, joking aside, I just don't get stuff like that anymore. I get like rice cakes and carrots and like what my father used to refer to as rabbit food, so that which is now also his favorite snack, except for the ice cream that we all love. But point being, I just like know that I can't have it in the house, and I know that I like to like mindlessly eat things when I'm feeling stressed. And so then rather than trying to deprive myself, I just make it easier to do what comes naturally and not have significant, like, not gain a bunch of weight when I do it. And then I also make sure to reward myself and have the treats I really like, but outside of my house. What do you do, Raghu? Hello? Hey, Raghu? Uh-oh. Excuse us, folks. It looks like... Did everything break? Oh, no. What's going on? What if I... Oh, boy. 1 second, guys. Oh, it was going so well. Isn't that funny? Like, that's the immediate thought. It was going so well. It's still going really well. It's just not working the way I want it to. You know what we can do about that? Fix it. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. So I want to come down here and click that. See if I can fix this. Can you guys still hear us? Can you still hear me? Great. So this is working. 1, 2, 1, 2. And I'm going to make it so that you can see me again. Hooray! And now I'm going to bring Raghu in. What happened? Buddy. All right, hang tight, guys. Let's see. Open rendezvous. All right, messages. Got it. All right. So he lost his internet for a second, and so we just got to bring him back. All right. Boom. But yeah, I just like this show may or may not get tighter. I think that like starting promptly at 3, I think maybe always having a guest, like a lot of things are not going to be as strict as I think they were. Like I think I got really excited about making something that was like the same thing every week. And I think that it's time to like lighten up, loosen up, have some fun with it again. Not that it hasn't been fun. I just think it could be way more fun to try new things and indulge more experiments. So, yeah. So here's how it's going. How are you guys while we wait for Raghu to come back? Oh, wait. I'm waiting for him to show up in this thing. Ba-ba-ba-ba-da. How are you guys in the meantime? I'd love to get some comments in the chat going. Any luck? Whoa. The Dream Daddy thing was hilarious, amazing. We're gonna get that going again. So that's pretty exciting. We will definitely do more Dream Daddy, not today for a couple of reasons, mostly just time and other priorities. But I think I might start streaming other times during the week, and like not mix things up. Naomi Cotton, my life has gone to shit, Valenti. What's going on? I hope you're all right. Oh, Nizzy Holloway, that's so sweet. That's so exciting. I'm glad that you're enjoying this. And there's Raghu. Hey, buddy. Can you hear me? Hello, Raghu. I see you. But can you hear me? Can you hear me all right? Yeah, I see you. I'm about to bring you live to everybody because only I can hear and see you right now. Can you hear me? Hey, buddy. Can you hear me? I'm going to assume you can't because you're not responding. But I see you. I think I need to text you. I hear you great. I hear myself. So please, if you have headphones or I don't know what yeah. Did you have headphones earlier? Oh yeah, you got to mute the YouTube for sure. Yeah, that's better. No, no, it's not. I still hear. I just hear a delay, and like, what am I listening to? Why do I hear that? Wait, is that my computer? What? What? How is that possible? No, you're in. This is not working. Something's happening where my uh so so this is a problem. You need to close your Chrome entirely, or like close any YouTube related window, only leave open Wirecast. If you want the chat, you can bring back YouTube and then pop out the chat, but I think for whatever reason it's pulling in your audio from YouTube, and that's a problem. Can you hear me, Raghu? Oh boy. What is going on? Not okay. Um, why can't you hear me? Uh, not sure why that is. Talk. Can you see me? I'm trying a new feature in Wirecast 8. Clearly has some room to grow. This is like their version of Skype. Um, oof, this is just awful. Oh man, it was a good conversation. I think. It's like, could get him back. That'd be nice. Oh. All right, it's trying to reconnect. We'll see if that works. But yeah, I think.
Hey, dude.
Hey, man. So what's happening?
I'm trying to reconnect on the Wirecast.
Okay. And what do you see?
Because, well, now it's saying waiting to join, but before the videos were working, but I couldn't hear you unless I unmuted the YouTube.
Which you can't do, because then
Right.
everybody hears that, and it like causes pandemonium.
Right.
Um,
Hey man, so
yeah, no, mute. No. It's still pandemonium. Still don't do that, please. Thank you. Because you're live and then it really sounds awful. Um, it's just like a round of Zach's and it's bad.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, it's on mute. I'm
Okay, great.
trying to reconnect. I don't know what happened.
Right. Which, I mean, could really just be that this is like a beta feature that they shipped as a non-beta feature, and they're, unassuming paid customer that is actually a beta user, which I'm not thrilled about. Wirecast, this is a $300 upgrade you charged me, and if I were doing client work, I would be demanding a full refund after this stream.
Yeah, you probably should tell them something.
Yeah, I definitely.
That's pretty stable.
Yeah, this is like
Everything else was working.
this is absolutely a like new feature. Because if you're trying, can you refresh your browser and trying to reconnect? Because
I closed it and like redid it.
can you wait like right now or like a second ago?
Let me do it again.
Yeah. I just like there's a thing that should be popping up for me to like bring you in, and it's not coming.
Okay, let me.
Yeah. And what I love about this is like there have been previous weeks of doing this show where it's become like I am a maniac setting up and like angry and impatient and then like chill once it's on. But like, okay.
Good.
Okay, so now you can hear me and see me? I can hear you and see you. Oh, this is great. It's working. Amazing. All right. I'm bringing you back in. So like I was saying, like I don't want to be like I don't know. I'd rather things be like messy and like problematic like this than be faking, if that makes sense. Like I'd rather like be the person that and like be learning and like sort of like surrendering into the mindfulness than like and like having a conniption and like then being like a monster on the phone with the support team for this software. And like if they have a beta program, they should sign me up and pay me for it. But anyway, not quite yet. I'm just bringing you into the upper corner. Yeah, for sure. But I'm live, so people hear me. I just sound like I'm talking to myself. Okay, now I think that I'm not a crazy person in their eyes, and we're all together again. Hooray!
Awesome.
Doing it live. All right, so I totally forget what we were exactly talking about.
Can you guys hear me? I don't see myself on YouTube, but maybe there's a delay.
It's going to be a delay, so just give it a moment and it'll come back. Yeah, it's like 30 seconds sometimes.
Oh, cool. All right. So, there we go. All right, we're good. All right.
Which is why the audio is so problematic when it's present. So yeah, anyway, shoot.
So you guys just did an awesome job of letting Zach and I experiment and be vulnerable in front of this entire community of like this crazy tech stuff. So that was awesome. I believe before we were talking about some like binge compulsive stress eating type of stuff. I don't know who asked
and
that.
What do you do? Yeah, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, so in college,
I wanted to know.
Yeah, in college, I used to go to West Shop, our small grocery store, and buy a box of Cinnamon Toast Crunch and a carton of milk and down it. Not the best option. It's tough, and I think I still kind of deal with that. Actually, it's a really, really tough thing. You have to be really intentional and set goals and a structure, right? But I actually want to recommend there's a new app you can use. It's called Eat Right Now. It kind of helps with mindful eating and like the science behind eating habits. So it helps you form like new habits, how to deal with cravings, how to be more mindful, and how to deal with recognizing stress versus actual hunger. It helps deal with like triggers and coping. So I would like highly, highly recommend using this. It's for iPhone and Android. It's called Eat Right Now. I was going to try to send a link to the chat, but I can't seem to do that. So maybe I'll have Zach post it up or something.
Yeah, just send me the link.
Yeah, but you guys should totally check that out. It will really help out a lot. The other thing is, I think it's really like the key to a lot of mental health and sort of like stress is developing your coping mechanisms, right? So eating is a coping mechanism. It's not necessarily the most positive or negative, but you kind of have to work on other things to do. And recognizing stress versus hunger. So that's why I really think this app will help a lot. Every time you feel that stress and that trigger to eat, just note down how you're feeling at the time, what you were thinking, and the time of day, and like what you think triggered it, right? So journal. I think for me, generally journaling helps me out a lot, and it helps me reflect back on things and kind of gives me perspective. I don't know if that's helpful for you guys.
We've talked about journaling a lot in the past. I think what we've done is chat about 750 words or like morning pages kind of thing.
Okay. The other thing that I like to do, yeah, totally. The other thing I've heard of 750 words actually. The other thing I like to do is actually at the end of the day, I have like 2 buckets at my door. One is a positive, one's a negative, and I try to drop in like 3 positives and 3 negatives. And then at the end of the week, you sit down for your cup of coffee or whatever, and you like go through it, and it allows you to get perspective on the things that you thought were negative are really like not that meaningful, right? They don't really affect you that much in the grand scheme of things. And the things that are positive are powerful, and they help reinforce that. So these are all like very tiny techniques that I've implemented over the past year or two just to like help me out, right? Like dealing with the stress, dealing with the anxiety. And it really does help out, guys. Like you should try it. It sounds silly, but it takes time and it develops. And it's a fun exercise when you sit at the end of the day, like going through all this stuff.
I love that. Do you track, like, do you save them forever? Or like, do you have like a database of those? Or I guess, do you just like throw them out after you check them out for that week and just kind of have it as a
I usually get rid of them. I keep track of like some memorable ones.
Yes. I think that's probably the sanest way to do it. Rather than make it about the collection, make it about the like discovery. And then if there's something you really want to keep, you can.
Yeah. And all this kind of goes back to like self-discovery, right? It helps you. It's all sort of in line with that. It's like helping you figure out your strengths and your weaknesses. And it's helping you gain perspective, and more forming new dimensions of your mind is like really what's going to help you achieve your goals.
I really love like having the context that uninterrupted speaking leads to deeper thinking gives me a reason to shut the hell up and not interrupt people, where naturally I'm really excited and I'm like easy to interrupt in conversation. And I've had to get better at that. And I think I have. But that is like, if I can remember that in a conversation, like I'm like, I feel like more likely to actually stay quiet because there's science to like let happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think we live in a very fast-paced world, and when you actually allow someone that uninterrupted time, it throws them off for a loop a little bit too, and it gets them to think deeper. And I think you're helping people surprise themselves.
Right. Right. And like having done a daily podcast for 2 months, I know the difference that talking out loud can provide, and just like talking to talk and, you know, sort of discover something. So if you don't have somebody to do that for you, to like actively listen and let that happen, feel free to like use the voice memo on your phone and just like see where the winds take you.
Exactly. I mean, it's just the act of speaking out loud, the act of processing your cognition is huge, and it doesn't have to be towards anyone specifically. It's just do it. I mean, that's what journaling is. It's processing. Also,
that.
very good job folding that laundry.
Thank you. I've learned from the best. My parents are pros, especially my dad really likes folding laundry, and got me to be part of the family participating in doing laundry when I was still living at home, which I think was good for me because I knew how to do it when I got to college, and I know how to do it now. So so I guess
this is
yeah.
Oh yeah, go on. Sorry.
No. It sounded like you had somewhere to go. I was just gonna like plug into one of the many outlets we have open in this conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to see what else you guys want to talk about specifically. Any questions, comments, like anything that you think might be helpful. I think you guys have a really powerful community, and you got each other to, I mean, I'm reading through this chat since the beginning. You guys have each other to talk to, which is awesome.
Seriously, and to experiment with, and to like run ideas by and get perspective on. And I just want to shout out Alicia Workman plugging the Discord chat where a bunch of folks hang out. I'm not in that chat, but I can only imagine how awesome it is. There was one thing that like occurred to me, which is, and I don't know what people think about this, but I think that there's like the community around this, and then there's the physical product itself of like the video. And I want to make sure that like the video doesn't become like something that anybody depends on, like the way Popeye depends on spinach to be strong. I would love for this to be an awesome, like, I just think of like Miyazaki movies, like an awesome bathhouse that like when you go, like you're like kind of guaranteed to get clean. But maybe like we show you in these conversations and like in these interactions, some like tips and tricks for like good, like sink showers, or like, like if you're not at a bathhouse, like how you can get clean and get, sort of get what you need ongoingly. And I love that this is like part of people's self-care rituals and routines. And I'd love to like hear more about what else you guys do around self-care. And like, I guess especially I feel in the past guilty for folks in the UK when I can't go live midday in New York and it's like unavailable for y'all. Like making those days an opportunity to like put some of these ideas into practice and like report back. I'd love to hear stuff like that. I don't know if that makes any sense. Okay, we got a question in the chat. Can you still hear me, Raghu?
Yeah.
Okay, great. How do you get people to like you when you're a mythic bitch who's an absolute attention whore?
So those are some strong words.
Yeah. Yeah. Shoot.
Yeah. I mean, I think, yeah, it's hard to answer that question, right? I mean, first of all, like what makes you, what's triggering you to feel that way sort of about yourself, right? Is it something that people have said to you, or is it something that you have sort of formed on your own as a representation of yourself, right? I think that, listen, there's like 7 billion people in the world. You're going to connect with somebody, and it's not about attention, right? It's about you are trying to genuinely connect with people. If they aren't ready to do that, then it might just not be the right relationship to form with someone. But I think the biggest thing right now from looking at that question is thinking more positive about yourself. And I think you would benefit a lot from doing a few of these sort of just exercises, specifically the positive negative bucket. You should try to do that and see how you do after a couple of weeks, because I think you'll start to realize that you're not really trying to grab attention, and it's not that negative as you think it is, and it's not, people aren't affected as much as you believe they are and viewing you in such a negative light. That's a really tough one for me to answer, I think, over the podcast, but you have a lot more to offer, I'm sure, and you're here in this community, and I would try to challenge you not to define yourself using that terminology.
Yeah, I have so bear with me
Yeah.
on how I would go about this, because it's going to sound dumb, and it kind of is, I guess. There is no you. What the fuck do I mean by that? So how do you get people to like you when you're a mythic bitch who's an absolute attention whore? Who is the you, and what are, like, you know what I mean? Like, who is the you in that sentence? Because, like, there's a mythic bitch and an absolute attention whore. Like, all of those things fall into a bucket that I like to call a narrative. That's like a story about yourself that maybe you have reasons for, maybe you're joking, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like a whole range of things, but I think that, like, regardless, it, I think, is indicative of how we relate to ourselves as these things that have fixed qualities that are, like, often unchangeable. And, like, I would invite you to consider that if the greatest surgeon in the world, you know, went looking inside of you for you, what you think of as you, what you call you, they wouldn't find it because it's not there. It's a story that we were, you know, basically told as a, you know, child coming into consciousness, that here we are and you are you, that's not me, and all of that. And it's a conversation that we forgot that we started and we made up, and, like, we actually have a say over who we get to be. If that is unclear or makes no sense, no worries. But do let me know if that, like, doesn't make any sense, and I can unpack it. But to switch gears, or, like, build on that foundation, like, now that there's not you being a mythic bitch, there's just you and maybe, like, who you have known yourself as somebody who likes attention, and maybe you're not getting what you want in that area. Getting people to like you, like, one, I found that there's no reliable way to get anybody to like you, like, to force them, because they actually have this thing called free will. Um, and I guess, like, what my dad always told me is, if you want to be an interesting person and perceived as interesting, get interested in others, in life, in, like, specific things like crafts or what, you know, whatever it is that, like, you would be interested in. Get interested and indulge your interest, and get curious, specifically with people. If you want to be with people and want people to want to be around you, I find it makes a really big difference to just be fundamentally fascinated and interested and have a lot of questions and, like, want to engage with people, not to get them to like you. And that can be hard if you're really feeling lonely and, you know, really want attention and are sort of concerned about yourself. and I think self-care is critical, and like you gotta take care of yourself because you can't guarantee that anybody else will. And like when I say there is no you, it's like that's like the narrativized story self that has this past that means that you can't X or Y. Fuck all that. Not to say it's like doesn't have validity. I just find that like I personally have overindulged my story self and it's just gotten in the way at every turn. Not like it's wrong, not like it's bad, just like it's limiting. And it's not actually like true most of the time that I like explore it. Does it, Raghu, tell me, am I making any sense? Like, do
Yeah,
you
I
have
totally
anything
get
to
it. I
add
think
or question? Okay, great.
the thing that relates to this was actually like a lot of people ask me like, oh, like you seem to be able to meet people and like network a lot, like so easily, right? And it's like, I think for me, it's the best thing I learned was similar to what Zach's dad said is like, um, for me, like it's relationship building, right? It's like I go in when I meet someone with, oh, like what can I offer them? Like how can I help them achieve their goal, right? Like what are they passionate about? What do we have in common?
Right.
It's not really like this like transactional thing. And that helps a lot, right? Because at the end of the day, people appreciate that and then it starts forming that relationship. I think if you go into it saying like, I feel like I'm seeking attention, um, it's recognized in body language and it's demonstrated through that. So if you go in with just like a genuine interest in just like meeting someone and like just learning about them, you'll be like pleasantly surprised, I think. So combining that introduction with someone with sort of the active listening component will like blow your mind. And it takes time to develop that patience to really do that. Um, I think there was a question kind of related to this. It was how do you cope with the friendship drifting apart? Not because of any wrongdoing or hostility, but because you're both too busy to spend time with each other anymore. That's something we all kind of face as we go through the various phases of our lives in different environments and settings. And it's tough, right? Like, yeah, Zach and I are pretty close friends and we've known each other. We went to college together. But
When
it's
was the
tough.
last
Like,
time we
right
talked?
now. Sorry?
When was the last time we talked?
Probably like a month ago. And I think it's because like
Yep.
I'm actually streaming in from San Diego right now and he's in New York. So like we're in totally different places and it's tough, right? But here's the thing, like I can still count on him even if we don't talk for a couple of months to like call him up and he knows he's like still there. He knows who I am as a person. So if I'm facing an obstacle, he knows like the best way for me to overcome it. So if you feel like you're drifting away from your friends, like in essence, like it doesn't mean you have to be talking or hanging out with them consistently, right? It's like they know you so well as a human being, as a person that like you can still rely on them and hit them up when you need to. But sometimes some friendships do just kind of end, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just like that's what happens. People develop, they change, they discover new things about themselves. Their mind forms new dimensions. It happens, and I think as a friend, you have to allow the other person to have that change and develop, and know that you were able to experience a relationship with them for a certain amount of time, which benefited the both of you and which helped the both of you in your lifetime, right? And sort of package that as like a chapter of your life and like move on from it. Because there are so many people in the world to meet and you can't be like friends with everyone. So just allowing yourself to move on through these various phases and stages of your life.
Right. Would you say that there's anything wrong with falling out of friendship or drifting or like losing touch with people?
I think it's totally okay. I mean, I think that sometimes, you know, as I mentioned, like people change, people develop. Um, I think it's fine, but you know that like you both had a common interest at some point and you both had a strong relationship at some point. So you should know that you can sort of always hit them up later on and it's not going to be like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, things drift apart. People change. I mean, that's the the beauty of life, right? And as a friend, you got to accept someone to drift away if they need to, and if they need to go into something else.
Right. And trust
I
that
think,
they'll
I
either
think forcing
understand or I was saying that people will get that from you as well.
right, exactly. And I think forcing a drifting relationship to survive is probably worse for the both of you.
And I think there's something to I don't think there's a righter or wronger answer to that, like letting something that is drifting drift. And there's, you can take a stand for a relationship that really matters to you that maybe you haven't said anything about, if that makes sense. Like, I think that there's a
Yeah.
world where it's like, you know, um, I had a friend who was dealing with addiction uh, quite acutely. And it was, I was one of the few people that they were allowed to talk to for years, and in a context of therapeutic boarding school back in high school. And then it was sort of an escalating, like the friendship was drifting. I wanted it to work. So I like kept sort of soliciting that it would work. And the decisions being made on his end of the phone were sort of consistent. Like he was still sort of not like taking action around his recovery and all these things. And it hit a point where it was like, I want this relationship to work, and I'm not going to sit here and like watch you die. So like, call me when you're ready to live was kind of the conversation. And I was like, looking back, I don't know if there's something I could have done differently. And we've been in touch in recent years. I actually owe him a phone call now, since he's like completely like 180'd his life in a really powerful way. And it's like, I think that there's a world where like, rather than let something drift, you could, it may be appropriate to just be like, yo, we haven't been in touch, and I want to like own that I haven't reached out, and it's important to me that we're in touch. Could I call you like every week or so? Like, would that be chill, or whatever it might be? Like, I don't think it necessarily has to look like reconnecting years later if it's something that you want to take a stand for. I think that that's the thing, is like, at the end of the day, so Raghu, what would you say about like, what does it mean for you to design, like live a designed life? Like, is that something you think about?
Hmm. I think I've been forced to think about it just because of sort of like the career that I'm in. With, being in medical school, they kind of have us think a lot about long-term, like where do you see yourself? What kind of practice? What kind of patients do you want to see? All this stuff, right? But for me, I try to allow the freedom of flexibility because it's allowed me to have a lot of various experiences, and there's no way I would have had them if I didn't allow myself to be flexible. I think the biggest example is like went into college, was like straight pre-med, trying to go to med school immediately. Obviously, that's not what happened. I met people like Zach. I met people at Wesley, and I took classes that were out of my comfort zone. It like gave me this crazy perspective on the world, started this organization. So none of that would have happened if I had this like designed life. Is it okay to have an outline and goals and motivations? Yeah, that's healthy. You should do that. But I think allowing yourself to also have the flexibility and freedom is so powerful. And sort of going back to the relationship thing, like I totally agree with you, Zach. Like sometimes people start drifting away when, maybe that it should be worked on a little bit more to keep it stable. And that's important. I think that for me, yeah, it's really important given the fast-paced way of things, social media, email, all this stuff, to just like take a moment and just like check in with people and just like shoot them a message and just be like, how's it going? And that's all it takes, right? Like you don't need to like call them up, schedule a meeting, schedule a call, like just shoot them a quick message once in a while. And even if you feel like the friendship's drifting, just that one message can like bring someone back from whatever state they're in, and they might have needed that at that time.
Right. Right. So I guess the one distinction I want to draw on the design thing is like, I think there's living a life designed by other people and like mostly our parents and like the conflict involved in that. And then there's like designing our lives. And I think you're one of the people, Raghu, that I looked at in college that was like actively carving out a path that is not default, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And like not to belittle paths that are sort of like, opt-in, pre-built things that you can follow. Like I think the point is that like we have the freedom to design our lives as we want, and there's like that's not to diminish there is like inequality in privileges and in resources and these things. Um, and I'm like, from a mindset standpoint, like the more that I think we talk about what we can do and like acknowledge things that are limitations and sort of like structural things that we can work together to change together.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I guess like that, like just that teasing out that idea of like, you can bring the rule of improv to your life where it's like, do I want to be a doctor or do I want to be an NGO like CEO? And it's not an either or, it's a yes and, but maybe not yes like everything right now.
Yeah. So I think for me,
Or like, yeah.
something I struggled with is like a lot of my peers in medical school, it's their goal to be a doctor, right? And for me, there's like
Mhm.
something inside of me where it's like, great, that's a huge accomplishment, right? But for me, there's something that's just inside where I'm not satisfied with that because my overall mission is like impact, like helping people discover themselves. And it's like, what can I do to get to that point? Going to medical school, being a doctor, for me, that's a stepping stone along this path. Um,
Mm.
but how do I achieve that goal is like, I have this general outline of what types of credentials, what types of things and I need and the skills I need. So I'm sort of just like doing the school thing to build a foundation and all of the experiences I have with patients and with interactions and with people I meet when I go out, that's like allowing me to just understand the human experience much better, right? And that's
Mm.
like what's really in terms of like designing my life, it's like all towards that one goal of like human discovery and trying to learn about like what it means to be like a person, what it means to have goals, what it means to uncover those goals and those passions. Um, so yeah, I think in essence, I like kind of carved out a general path, which we all do, but having the flexibility is what allows you to go away from that path a little bit and take it to the
Right.
next level, if that makes sense.
That's exactly why I wanted to have this conversation because I think that that is part of the design that I have been depriving myself as I've been looking to live a life by design is building in flexibility, building in sanity. And like when I say that, I mean like sleep and like self-care, like, right, like sort of foundational self-care practices. Um, and, uh, and so, yeah, so I guess like as we start to wrap up, there's one question that I don't want to step over from Tree Kid from a little bit ago, which is who asked a couple times, and it moves fast. So thanks for reposting. How do you accept someone who's avoiding you, like purposely avoiding you? And what I would say is one, great question, because you didn't say how do you get somebody who's avoiding you to stop avoiding you, because that is not what I would recommend. So how do you accept that? It's one of those things where I find I could say a lot of different things, but it kind of boils down to the fake it till you make it line, which is forgive yourself if you think that that would make a difference. And how you forgive yourself is you say, I forgive myself. And then you act accordingly. And if you notice that you're not like still beating yourself up, you say it again and you try it again. And I know that sounds dumb, but like try it for a week. and do it alongside. I'm going to do Raghu's exercise with the positive negative bucket this week and report back next week, and just run that experiment. So I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you for that, Raghu. What about you? What would you say to this person about how to accept somebody who's avoiding them?
Yeah, I think that, that exercise helps the most for sure. I totally agree with what you said. Like, I wouldn't, if you feel like someone's avoiding you, like for the first step is what Zach said, right? Like you need to allow yourself to be fine with that and don't put blame on the person or on yourself. I think that sometimes...
And not knowing the circumstances, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure, not knowing the circumstances, if you haven't had that conversation where they're literally saying, stay away from me, or like, basically, if the situation is you don't know that they're avoiding, you just think that they are, you might want to check in with them in a way that's appropriate and non-invasive with like a text message, an email, like, hey, like, could we check in? Like, and if you've done that a couple times and it's clear either because of what they've literally said or what they've said with their behavior, like if you tried to check in and they've just like blown you off like 5 times, in like a couple, a month or 2 or whatever, then I think this applies. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes,
Raghu.
no, I agree. So what I was going to say is that, people are always kind of facing their own obstacles and challenges internally, and it's hard for them to express that. And sometimes the best way is to avoid the issue, avoid people. So I think if you've done this exercise of sort of checking in with them and intentionally caring and genuinely checking in, seeing how they're doing, and, they're still avoiding you, I think at the end of the day, you need to allow them to do that and do that as a positive gesture of your relationship, as you're like allowing them the freedom to take that step if that's what they wanted. And the acceptance is that you've allowed them to do that, right? So that's the positive side to it.
Beautiful. Really, really awesome to have you on, Raghu. I would love to, as we wrap up, basically just give you an opportunity to say anything, anything that you like, anything that you think would be useful. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. No, it's been awesome to be on. We faced a couple of fun technical difficulties, and I want to thank all of you guys for allowing Zach and I to run this new experiment with this software and this like new setup. It's been pretty cool. I think I definitely want to allow any of you to reach out anytime you want to me. I am in medical school. Someone asked that question. I'm in my last year. So I'm going to be training in psychiatry starting in June officially as a licensed doctor, which the world is allowing me to do. So that's kind of nuts.
That's so crazy, dude. It's like a dream of yours come true.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a lot of challenges and obstacles, guys, along the way. And I hope some of the techniques that we talked about today can kind of help out and help you guys discover yourselves. And I think the key is really like, don't overthink it. Flexibility is awesome. It allows you to meet some like seriously cool people. And that's like what has surprised me the most is like getting out of my comfort zone and like going to like a dinner by myself or something and meeting people, or just like going to a bookstore and exploring and like talking to people. So allow yourself to do that. And it's tough. It can be tough, but do these exercises. I think it'll definitely help out. It takes time. Zach's been running such a cool show, and I'm sure you guys have talked a lot about other techniques as well. Yeah, totally reach out whenever you want.
Amazing. Is there a place that people should reach out to you, like Twitter, or is there a platform that you prefer?
Yeah, you could totally, you know what? Let's go with Twitter. I'm going to start doing some Twitter. So at R
tweet. Watch out, world. At R Appasani. That's RAPPASANI. Right. Rappasani.
Yes. So tweet at
I
me.
don't have it. Yeah.
Anything you want. We'll see where it takes us. I'm excited to continue exploring and discovering the world with you guys.
Amazing. We all feel the same way, Raghu. I think I can, judging from some of the comments I've seen today, confidently say we love you. And I know I do for sure. So yeah. What did I want to say? I am really excited to keep this experiment going. I will see you guys next week. Let's see. Next week, I think around the same time works for me. But stay tuned. I'll probably shout out an update at some point on Instagram and or Twitter. So definitely follow me there. That's Zach Valenti, Z-A-C-H, on both. If you don't subscribe to this channel, please press that button. If you like this, please press that thumbs up thing. If you want notifications here, I think it'd be fun because I'm maybe doing more random streams. Although I haven't quite, because yeah, it depends where I am. Instagram Live is easier from the go. But anywho, long story short, love you guys. And until next week, keep being awesome. All right, there's a button here somewhere. And I think we'll still be on a call, Raghu, so hang tight.
Okay.
One sec.